It is a privilege for me to address you today on behalf of the World Jewish Congress, which represents more than 100 Jewish communities across the globe, and our regional affiliate, the Latin American Jewish Congress, which works with the communities throughout South and Central America and Caribbean. Every country in the Western Hemisphere, every member country of Organization of Americas has a Jewish community that belongs to one of our structures. Together, we are on the forefront of the battle against anti-Semitism and all other forms of bigotry and hatred. Today, I would like to devote my short remarks, to the principal threat that faces not only Jewish communities around the world, but the entire international community, the threat of international jihadist terrorism, and I understand that you already had a number of presentations on this issue. On March 17, 1992, a suicide bomber smashed a car filled with explosives into the Israeli embassy in Buenos Aires, killing 29 people and wounding 242. This was the first major international terrorist attack in the Western Hemisphere. The blast destroyed the embassy, the Catholic Church, and the nearby school building. The dead included not only Israeli diplomats and their wives, but also Father Juan Carlos Bromana, a priest who happened to be in the church at the time of the attack. 2 years later, on July 18, 1994, in an even deadliest terrorist attack, 85 people were killed and hundreds injured when another car crashed into the Jewish center of AMIA, the Association Mutual Israelita-Argentina, also in Buenos Aires. This remains the deadliest terrorist attack that occurred in Latin America. Other fatal terrorist attacks have taken place in other parts of the world, especially in the Middle East, Afghanistan, Pakistan, and Africa. The Western Hemisphere has also had its share. There was the first attack in the World Trade Center in 1993, and we were all horrified by the destruction of the Twin Towers in Manhattan on September 11, 2001. There have also been terrorist killings in the United States, including the bombings at the Boston Marathon in April 2013 that left 3 dead and more than 180 injured, and the shooting in San Bernardino, California in December 2015, in which 15 people were killed and 22 injured. And then there was the deadly terrorist attacks in France, the United Kingdom, Denmark, Sweden, Germany, Belgium, Bulgaria, and Turkey, among other countries. It seems that no one is safe. Not the editors and journalists of Charlie Hebdo magazine in Paris, not the customers at the nearby kosher food market, not the crowd celebrating Bastille Day in French Independence Day in Nice, not the security guard outside a Jewish community center in Copenhagen, not concert attendees in Paris and Manchester, not holiday shoppers in Berlin, not travelers in the Brussels airport, nor pedestrians on London Westminster Bridge. We are all potential victims. These deadly terrorist attacks in Argentina, Europe, and the United States were caused by fundamentalist jihadists inspired and motivated by an ideology of hatred, and hatred that is directed to Western civilization, of which we are all part, and the democratic institutions that we value. Jewish communities and Jewish institutions are often a specific target of these terrorists. In many cases, they are viewed as the sophist targets that are easy to identify and do not necessarily have adequate government protection. In March of 2016, a 35-year-old man named Carlos Omar Peralta Lopez, also known as Abdullah Omar, shouted, "There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger," in a Uruguayan courtroom, a day after he stabbed David Frame, the Jewish businessman, Uruguayan businessman, to death. Most recently, the equally vicious murder of Mireille Knoll, an elderly Holocaust survivor in her home in Paris, was recognized as a hate crime that shocked the conscience not only in France, but around the world. I cannot emphasize enough that both of these hate crimes were very much acts of terrorism, and that they were inspired and fueled by the jihadist terrorist ideology. But I also want to emphasize that terrorists do not target only specific minorities, but rather attack our society as a whole, Jews, Christians, and Muslims. It is imperative, therefore, that all parts of civil society join together with governmental authorities like yourselves to fight and defeat the forces behind this particular evil. We also have to be mindful of the fact that the jihadist terrorists benefit from the presence in the Western Hemisphere together with other extremist movements. both neo-Nazi and their ilk on the far right and radical movements on the left, which all contribute to an atmosphere of division and mistrust, often accompanied by anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, or other forms of xenophobia or bigotry. This is why my colleagues and I, the World Jewish Congress and the Latin American Jewish Congress, spent much of our time, like Brian said, meeting with senior government officials in different countries, together with the leaders of local Jewish communities, in order to make sure that all measures are taken to keep our societies safe. The Latin American Jewish Congress holds an annual meeting of parliamentarians to help provide a unified legal framework to combat terrorism. Over 250 Latin American legislators have attended the most recent of these meetings in Buenos Aires, coinciding with the anniversary of AMIA bombing. This program is organized to both raise awareness on the importance to take concrete measures to combat terrorism and to provide the framework for regional legislators to coordinate the legal front. We firmly believe that interfaith dialogue is a critically important strategic tool to prevent extremist religious thinking, one of the catalysts of contemporary jihadist terrorism. Constant and deep conversations with different faiths are the only way to connect and prevent terrorist attacks. On a broader level, there can be no doubt that the government of Iran and Hezbollah are behind this ideology, and I understand that you had a presentation here from the State Department. The fact that there have been no major terrorist incidents in Latin America since the 1994 AMIA bombing in Buenos Aires provides an opportunity for proactive and preemptive action. We know that Hezbollah, perhaps the Iranian government's principal terrorist agency, is one of the deadliest terrorist organizations in the world. They have proven it again and again and again. We also know that Hezbollah has been present in Latin America for some time now. Iranian and Hezbollah operatives were behind the 1992 and 1994 Buenos Aires bombings of the Israeli embassy and the AMIA Cultural Center. It is also clear that Hezbollah has been strengthening its foothold in Latin America in recent years. Allowing Hezbollah to spread its wings in the Western Hemisphere is a recipe for disaster. The US State Department annual country reports on terrorism for 2015 and 2016 stated that Hezbollah, and I quote, continued to maintain a presence in the region with members, facilitators, and supporters engaging in activity in support of the organization, including efforts to build the organization's infrastructure in South America and fundraising both through licit and illicit means. It noted Hezbollah fundraising activities in areas of Latin America, which remained an important regional nexus of arms, narcotics, pirated goods, human smuggling, counterfeiting, and money laundering, all potential funding sources for terrorist organizations. End of quote. We must do everything in our power to prevent Hezbollah and its patron and principal funder, the government of Iran, from exploiting these potential funding sources to obtain a foothold in Central and South America, and from turning the OAS member countries into battleground to advance their cause. Hezbollah is not just a danger to Lebanon, Israel, and Europe, but it is a threat to the security of all of us. Countries such as the United States, Canada, the United Kingdom, Australia, and Bahrain recognize Hezbollah as a terrorist group. In 2013, the European Union recognized the military wing of Hezbollah as a terrorist entity, and there in February of this year, members of the European Parliament called on the EU Foreign Affairs Council to designate Hezbollah in its entirety as a terrorist organization. It is therefore critically important that the Inter-American Committee Against Terrorism, as well as the OAS and its member states, formally designate Hezbollah as a terrorist organization. This would make it easier and give international law enforcement the necessary tools to track Hezbollah's financial system and fundraising in the region, its recruitment system, and its other global activities. Ladies and gentlemen, the World Jewish Congress and the Latin American Jewish Congress are committed to fighting international terrorism in all its forms. We admire the work and accomplishments of the Inter-American Committee Against Terrorism and look forward to working closely with you to ensure the safety and security of our societies. Thank you very much and enjoy the rest of the conference.